welcome to the Overwatch Pacific Championship, Week 8, Day number 1. I'm Dallas Easy Fight today. Joining me here tonight, Matt Smite Ross and Kevin Avril Walker. And we're going to be having Fireball coming up against SunSister for our first match of the day. Fireball obviously having a pretty good showing over the last few weeks. SunSister, though, still looking to get off the 0-win margin there.
It's a pretty big day for Fireball because obviously it's also their home day, which means they're back-to-back games. They're going to be on the home side. It's against both the Japanese teams, which right now look like the most likely teams that Fireball are going to pick up wins against.
And also, you know, the most likely games and matches that those Japanese teams might actually pick up wins for themselves as well. We had a pretty close call with SunSister last time. It went to Game 5 at SunSister. They were up 2 maps to 0 before Fireball came in for the reverse sweep. So, I mean, there has been a decent amount of competition at that lower end of the table on that leaderboard as well. So I think these 2 matches coming up, Fireball against both SunSister and Detonator, should be fairly close.
Yeah, Detonator as well, right? Last week we actually saw them take a map off AHQ. Now, something could be said about AHQ's performance during that week, but Detonator, no doubt, have actually improved a huge amount over the last few weeks, and they think so as well. So not just SunSister, who have a track record against going close against Fireball, but also Detonator should put on a good show against them too.
I mean, do you think it's because SunSister just match up slightly better against Fireball than the likes of Detonator Gold, or is it purely just, I don't know, Fireball just not really, I guess, cut out for taking on the likes of, I don't even know what I was actually talking about there. I had something there for a second, but then it's totally gone.
Team matchups and whether they're maybe a bit of the kryptonite.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
To Fireball. I wouldn't say it necessarily kryptonite. It's just more that they're closer in if you were to have power levels for these teams on the ladder right now. SunSister, they've only come close to beating Detonator. That's the only other team that they've realistically had a shot at beating, which is the other Japanese team. Now, Fireball as well there's a mid-tier of teams in the leaderboard right now, but Fireball are still quite far at the bottom of that tier.
Well, there it is. Now you get your first couple of shots of Team Fireball as we see them as the home team, but I mean, Fireball kind of an expected quantity here. We know how Fireball perform. We've got a pretty good idea of how all the teams kind of perform here, but like I said, good opportunity for both Japanese teams to potentially pick up a win, and also a good opportunity if it goes the other way for Fireball to then get themselves further up the leaderboard, closer to Lijiang and Hong Kong Attitude, who they're kind of trailing now.
Fireball need the wins tonight, but more importantly though, it's both Japanese teams, and SunSister especially need to pick up their first win tonight.
I mean, other than obviously coming up against Detonator Gold, Fireball's obviously the team for them to pick that win up against. I mean, they're really going to need to show a vast improvement though. I mean, they've obviously had a good showing prior to this matchup, but coming into this is where I guess we're really going to be able to see if they're have really made, you know, a big improvement from their last matchup against Fireball.
I think everyone's made some solid improvement throughout the tournament, and it just kind of goes to show as well, as soon as you find one team specifically at the bottom of the ladder, you think Detonator and SunSister, yes, they've made some really good improvements, but then later on and higher on that leaderboard as well, so have Fireball, so have Machi, so have Hong Kong Attitude, and then also the top of the leaderboard as well. I think every team in this tournament has made some pretty good progress.
Obviously, the question tonight, at least for the first match, is going to be who's improved the most, Fireball or SunSister? And to be honest, in my opinion, I think SunSister has improved, not quite as much as Detonator, but they've improved more than Fireball have. However, they were starting off at a lower level of play than Fireball, of course. In the very first round robin, of course, Fireball were shutting out those teams below them. They were even shutting out Machi as well. So the amount of improvement SunSister would have had to achieve to get to this level, to take down Fireball tonight, has to be quite a lot. However, Fireball, I feel, haven't shown a huge amount of improvement. Yes, some, but compared to the other teams even in the entire tournament, I don't think they've shown as much.
Too busy practicing their pre-match antics, are they?
I wonder what they've got tonight.
Which, yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, should be, if it's been good before and it's their home day tonight, well, I mean, something pretty amazing maybe to look forward to. We'll have to see. You know, maybe we'll get like a little, so far every team that's had a home day has had some kind of a preview clip, some kind of team clip of them. So for Fireball, maybe a few highlights to look forward to.
And obviously, you know, they are, I guess, you know, fan favorites there, but I mean, looking at the overall standings just to see how these teams are sort of stacking up over the last few weeks, you know, AHQ still solidifying their spot up the top there. Flash Wolves, you know, close on their trail now, obviously have a match this evening against Detonator Gold, I believe, so looking to pick themselves up their 15th win to put them first equal with AHQ, you know, Blank falling off the hot run that they were on, you know, dropping 4 maps there. But I mean, it's really on Fireball now to pick up a couple of wins here in their back-to-back home games against the two Japanese teams.
The problem is, look how far behind, not just the top of the table Fireball are, but also the next team above them. 3 wins difference right now. They have to win that many games to not even pass Hong Kong Attitude, but actually just tie with them right now. And Hong Kong Attitude, they even get a game today, which is against Marchi, which will be a very important matchup as well. Those two teams have been really vying for that 4th place spot and even vying for that 3rd place spot once one of them comes out ahead. So that's also another important matchup to watch. But back to Fireball, right? They're so far behind even Hong Kong Attitude.
So this is where now for Fireball, if they get those 2 wins tonight, they're going to be sitting at 7. Hong Kong Attitude, if they lose to Machi, they're going to be sitting at 8. So you've gone from a 3-point difference to then a 1-point difference, and that's so much more available for Fireball to actually catch up to. That makes it the journey for them to get into that 5th position a lot more likely.
You can see the teams there as well, and we're also going to just have a look at the players. Which, usually there's a pretty good show coming out from the Fireball guys, but there's Kurlos there, a pretty solid support player, I've got to say. Always, not humongous flashy plays, but always gets his job done. Oh, Puto's on this side this time. I guess actually because they're the home team, it's mirrored, so he's going to be 2nd. What has he got planned?
Just a cheeky little tongue out there. Having a little bit of a pre-game snooze.
They always save their gag for the end, and it usually includes a Puto, so maybe it's going to involve different players.
We start with the end this time, though. So.
Yeah, so maybe it might involve different players, or maybe they're just taking a chill day, and maybe they're not going to play anything this time.
Well, as we wait and in anticipation for that 9th, obviously being a big standout player for the Fireball side over the few weeks that we've seen them be playing, definitely on that up and up.
These are also guys currently in contention for spots on the Thai World Cup team as well, guys like Apuro, obviously NZNR, and 9th that I'm aware of. I'm sure the others are probably sort of on that list as well, but as far as I know, those 3 are definitely in the running for that team. So
Certainly, and then also we're just going to move on to SunSister. There's Night Owl as well. In a few of the earlier weeks, he was actually subbed out for XQQ, but back on the team as it seems to be a bit more of a permanent addition, just keeping him on the roster as well. And he's been swapping up his roles as well. So that's something that SunSister have been doing a lot.
Well, Mollis, definitely that sort of standout DPS player, definitely been able to take, I guess the hopes of SunSister on his back there a little bit. In my opinion, definitely one of the stronger players on the squad there as well.
I think that's actually, if I'm not mistaken, Kira 44 behind them, who is kind of where that coach position normally is. So it wouldn't surprise me actually if he sort of picked that up for his team, because he is now sitting out. He's not the player that's actually actively participating. So the fact that they came in with 7 players, it does kind of make sense to me that one of those players, whoever it is, that being Kira 44 stepping out, now he's more on a, more of a coaching advisory sort of role for the team.
And that's another thing to mention as well, that 7th player that came in a few weeks into the OPC, XQQ, has been probably the most contentious player in the whole tournament. He came in with a big bang as well, just having a stunning performance, specifically on McCree. We've all seen that clip, of course, but also a few weeks down the track, he started pulling things out that were just a little bit, they make you sit back and say, what? What's the plan here? And then sometimes it works, sometimes it's amazing and it's great, but most of the time, it just seems like it's hindering his team. And that is something that has been holding SunSister back, I feel. Maybe they've got 2 solutions, right? It can be either find a way to work around these XQQ mystery picks, or just rein him in and just get him to play more standard. That's
something that I've sort of noticed, and I mean, I guess it's reading into his body language a lot there, but when we sort of see him come onto the camera, it's maybe, he's in his zone, obviously getting ready for the matchup, but a lot of the time he seems, very serious, a lot of the team obviously looking pretty smiley, pretty, I guess, looking like comrades there, and he kind of looks like he's, that lone wolf, and it sort of translates into his play, I've sort of noticed as well, the rest of the team, doing something as a unit, and he's obviously off by himself sometimes. And I mean, you expect that coming out of the Tracer player or any of these flankers, but when he does it with heroes like McCree or even May, I think we've seen him bust out a few Mays here and there. It just sometimes looks like he's a little bit disjointed and disconnected from the rest of his team. So I feel that's one thing that sort of, I guess, he's definitely a mechanically skilled player, but when it comes to, I guess, his teamwork, maybe it leaves a little bit to be desired.
And this has been the problem for SunSister for some time now. They've struggled to find something that really works well for their team. They've struggled to find a comfortable composition just something that they can say, this is exactly what we're going to play, and there's not going to be any surprises for themselves or even the other team, and that's something that I would hope they have figured out by now. They've had a number of weeks together where XQQ has been on the roster. They've had a number of weeks together where now, look, Kyria44 isn't on, Night Owl is back in. That's been the case for some time now. So you've had a set numbers, you've had a set 6-player roster, very consistent lineup. You now have the opportunity, and should have by now, figured out what you're doing as a team.
That said though, I feel like over the last 1 or 2 weeks, XQQ has been a little more contained, right? He hasn't been bringing out these ridiculous picks. Sometimes when his team's a little bit on the ropes, he'll throw out something like a Widowmaker or a Mei right at the end in a last-ditch effort. Widowmaker's an interesting one as a last-ditch effort, by the way, but we'll talk about that if that happens. But apart from that, he's actually been pretty solid, right? He's been on things like Genji and Tracer, McCree as well, and Soldier sometimes too. So when he's on those picks, that's when SunSister seems to do the best. And yes, they can sometimes pull out wins with his wacky Mei and Hanzo and Orisa picks as well, but actually I don't think he's ever won with Orisa, but sometimes they get good results, but it's not nearly enough to justify picking those things up. So unless they have done ridiculously intense scrimming with those picks, then I don't want to see it at all tonight.
I mean, and this is something as well, we'll just touch on the side of Fireball before we get into this one. They're a team obviously that have, a lot of sort of standout players. We sort of talked to them, I guess held them in really high regard before this tournament started. I know like we've obviously seen them play in prior tournaments to this, especially a few of the players in there. And they just really haven't looked like they've been able to mesh, together well enough to really be able to compete. They're just always that one step behind, the rest of the teams that are above the leaderboard. So I guess this is going to be a really good matchup to see if SunSister have managed to make those, I guess, improvements, in their sort of team play, finding themselves a reliable composition, but also for the side of Fireball to see if they've actually worked out through a lot of those, I guess, teamwork issues there. Sometimes they're relying too heavily, I feel, on, one single person to really turn up, and sort of carry them in a sense. And so I think this is where they're really going to get a chance to fall back, and work on, I guess, back to basics essentially when it comes up against these Japanese teams.
Fireball's a team that needs to be able to find other answers and other opportunities to win games other than just relying on solely Apudo, because it does feel like this is a team where Apudo has to do the main bulk of the work. He is the main carry of the team and has to shoulder the majority of the weight for the team as well. Now, Enzidana has been picking up on his own Tracer play as well, but there needs to be a little bit more coming from the back end of that Fireball side. And once they're really able to come up as a 6-man team and not as a 5-man group with one guy sort of in the head spearheading it, that's when we're going to see Fireball really be able to get some results. So this is now opportunity again for them to get 2 rounds or 2 points on the leaderboard, catch up to Hong Kong Attitude, and maybe there's a possibility down the line where they can actually equalize themselves or take over Hong Kong Attitude.
Well, last time these two teams met on Lijiang Tower, SunSister did pick themselves up the win there. So Fireball going to be going back to Lijiang Tower, looking to get a little bit of redemption against SunSister on this one. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup as we go into Control. How do you feel, I guess, this is going to stack up here? Do we have any sort of, I guess, pre-predictions here? You think Fireball have got what it takes to get themselves the win this time?
Well, see, it's interesting because, like you said, last time these teams met, it was actually SunSister that won on Lijiang Tower. Fireball's also a team that has been known for throwing out different control maps, like sometimes Oasis, Nepal, even Ilios. They wanted to make their map at one point. But they're now going back to Lijiang Tower. This is looking to prove a point, take out SunSister immediately. And also remember, it's their home day, right? Because they've got to have pre-planned maps against both of these teams right now. So it'll be interesting to see if they pick up Lijiang Tower against Detonator as well, to see if this is just the map they've practiced the most, or if Lijiang Tower is the map that they think they can beat SunSister on.
Well, the other thing there as well is obviously not trying to give too much away. It is still Control at the end of the day, but when they come up against Detonator, they still will have, that first pick there. So that might be when they, sort of lure Detonator into a false sense of security. So Detonator are now watching, obviously thinking, are we going to go to Lijiang Tower? Is it Lijiang Tower? And then they obviously, throw a spanner in the works and go to Ilios there. So quite a nice selection, I think, coming out from Fireball, taking it to Lijiang Tower.
I think it may be a little bit of a mistake for Fireball to pick Lijiang Tower against SunSister. Now, one of the things as the home team is you understand which map you're going to be going into. Picking SunSister's strongest map is making a statement, but that could be the wrong statement if Fireball don't pick this up.
I mean, it's all good to make a statement if you're one of the top tier teams playing the bottom of the ladder, but right now, this is a match that they need to win. Fireball need to really handily beat SunSister today if they want to have hope of taking out any of the teams above them who've been showing vast amounts of improvement.
Well, 5 seconds away from getting into this one, and this is really going to set the tone for the series, I feel. They're definitely going to need to build themselves some momentum coming into Lijiang Tower here, and it is going to be Apudo on the famous Genji.
Yeah, both teams running pretty much mirrored compositions right here. It's just going to be all about that dive onto the backline. Watch both of the Zenyatas. A lot of the time, those are the players that do end up dying first, but we can also watch the Winstons, the Genjis, the players that are going to be diving in because they've got to be able to stay alive at the same time.
Oh, and Zetman, though, paying for his early aggression there. Now Rocket looking to get the party started here, jumping right up into the back lines, but SunSister managing to find themselves a few kills there, taking out NZ now as well, so Tracer down now as well, and SunSister surely going to be able to come out on top of this fight here. Nice turnaround there, and nice bait in there from SunSister.
Pretty massive one-sided win as well, which is going to set them nice ahead in the ultimate progression. You can also see Adenkin has swapped over onto, sorry, not swapped over, he was on the Soldier from the start, but that's the triple DPS lineup that they're running. Now, when Tactical Visor does come out, it's going to be 100% on Ninth to get up in his face and deny it. One thing that Fireball does have is Apudo. He's almost at that Dragon Blade. That's going to be a big reason that they can actually just turn around and win this fight in an economic way as well.
Yeah, somehow managing to get his Dragon Blade faster than XQQ, hitting the Dragon Blade, picking up Elu early into this one as well. Going to be finding Mollis as well with a Discord on him. A lot of damage being done here from the side of Fireball, managing to find themselves a fair few kills here onto the side of SunSister, but they do manage to fall back, answer with a couple of kills of their own, but Fireball do get themselves the cap off the back of that.
All in all, I mean, apart from losing the point itself, SunSister makes some all right trades there. They didn't burn any ultimates during that. They also built up some of their own. They got a few tradebacks, and importantly, they didn't lose too many of their own members. So they're still sitting in a good position to win this next fight. The only thing they have to worry about is the pulse bomb from NZNR. If he connects that, that's huge.
Well, the sound barrier now coming in from the side of Fireball, and they already picked that kill up onto XQQ as well. He did use the Dragon Blade there, so this is a bit of a disaster for SunSister. The Pulse Bomb coming out as well from Mollis didn't connect at all on top of that. So Fireball, great counterplay coming out off the back of that engagement there, and do keep themselves in control of the point.
Easy, it's happening. XQQ is bringing out the Mei. It's going to be a bit of a surprise for Fireball, or will it? Because he's done it before. So now this changes up things a lot. There's no Genji to worry about. That's going to be basically, SunSister are going to have to get up into the face. One good thing it's going to do is it's going to freeze D.Va. It's not going to allow Ninth to do any amount of defense metrics at all, which unlocks a Denkin and attack.
Well, sound barrier coming through for SunSister already. Zetman out of the fight as well. Going to have no ultimate to use there at all. Tactical Visor now on top of this. Can Ninth get on top and block this with the with the D.Va? But at nothing at all there. One kill apiece though, but Rocket doing a great job up in the back lines, managing to delay a lot of these squishy characters from getting in and helping the side out. They are getting themselves a little bit of cap, SunSister, but they won't be able to cap as so many viable players are still alive and will still be able to contest this point. 77% here, and SunSister need to come up with something, but they can't find anything as the rest of the DPS are just going to work on the back lines.
They do find 2 kills, but the trades just simply don't seem to be enough. Fireball are going to be getting their reinforcements really quite soon. NZNR is still alive as well, and we all know how long a Tracer can survive on the point. And if they can last long enough for Apudo to come back with that Dragon Blade, that's surely just going to be one last desperation fight for SunSister running in. And they've got nothing to show for it.
98% here. Overtime now actually ticking down, and 2 ultimates as well on the side of Fireball. They do have a self-destruct to work with. The Dragon Blade coming through from Apudo, looking to just clean up this first stage of Lijiang Tower. And indeed, that is going to be that right there. Zetman picking up the trade, but nothing at all that SunSister can do here. Sound barrier for Fireball just to push things over the finish line here. And sure enough, they pick themselves up this first stage on Lijiang Tower. So a bit of a different story here.
Oh, well, I've got to say, it's probably the third fight that was pretty defining because SunSister, they had just lost a fight against Fireball, who utilized that Dragon Blade from Apudo, right? And they actually got okay trades out of it. They baited out an ultimate, or not necessarily baited because they didn't lose the fight, but at the same time, they put themselves in a good position to come back and win the fight. The thing is, they were walking into a sound barrier, and then they lost that fight, and I feel like they just went into desperation mode a little bit too early. They brought out the Mei and tried to win it from there. Surely they would have known that they were going to be at an ultimate disadvantage from that point on as well, because it was uneven trades, and then also the Mei, it didn't really fit in the composition either. And also, icicles weren't locking onto NZNR's head as has happened before.
Well, they've made some changes up here. XQQ going to be bringing in the Soldier 76. Odinkun actually going to be bringing the Diva here. So I think Knight's Diva last map was, or last stage I should say, was definitely crucial, leading them to victory. So we'll see how this one's going to match up here, as it is quite the mirror composition coming out, other than obviously that Soldier there.
I'd say the difference is that, well, Ninth is going to be able to block out a tactical visor, while Odinkun, not as much really. XQQ finding the kill onto Zetman straight away, that should set them up to just push them away.
But yes, now it is going to be SunSister coming out on top of this, but NZNA saying no way Jose, managing to take out the mech from Odinkun, and now Ninth as well, taking out XQQ. So surely with the cap now in Fireball's favor, can SunSister find anything to find a cap here? Obviously not only going to be the Tracer just left trying to get a little bit of contest here, and Fireball going to be easily able to clean them up and really stagger the spawn out. Oh, Pulse Bomb being thrown out there as well by NZNA. So nice cleanup coming in from him.
So about that Pulse Bomb though, what was it really achieving, right? It's buying a few extra seconds in the respawn, and yeah, it's a guaranteed stagger, that's fine, but at the same time, right, he could have had that for this next fight. That could have been a way to win the fight just on its own. Wait until they're finally grouped up once more, find that Pulse Bomb again, and then get an easy kill. Sure, it was almost guaranteed because of where he was positioned. But in any case, now he doesn't have
sound barrier coming through, and now Apudo going to be hitting the Dragon Blade. A lot relying on this one. Hasn't really picked up anything just yet, but as I say that, Elu going to be falling here, and SunSister going to have to reset as they get completely wiped out of that fight, but Fireball still committing 2 ultimates in.
Yeah, I mean, SunSister can be okay with getting those ultimates out of them. They've still not used any of their own. And also, I can't stress how important Pulse Bombs can be in these fights, in these economical pushes where you're trying to bait out ults from your enemy team, right? Fireball, they used their one, it didn't find too much, so instead, SunSister, Fireball had to commit the Dragon Blade as well. Now, SunSister can go in, they've got a lot of ultimates to work with. We're going to see them try and use everything now.
Transcendence now from Fireball, looking to really take the fight straight to SunSister, not letting them have any breathing room here, as SunSister did build up a lot of ultimates for this next fight. They do manage to take out Kurlos after that Transcendence has already been used, so going to be pretty good there for Fireball. And now they do have Rocket obviously hitting the Primal Rage as well, looking to be able to buy themselves still a lot of time. Self-destruct coming through, won't find anything there, so Knight's not going to be too happy with that. Pulse Bomb thrown out there by NZNA, picks up a double, and that's going to be great stuff now for Fireball. Going to be easily able to hold on to the cap off the back of this. Mollis doing a good bit of work up in the back lines to force NZNA back, and he's going to have Apudo right by his side to help him out there. And Fireball unbelievably hold on to this one, and they should be able to pick this one up. 100-0, leading Lijiang 2-0.
Well, they've clearly stepped up their game on Lijiang Tower as well, I've got to say. It just seems like Fireball always have an answer for what SunSister are going to bring up for a win. Tactical Visor, here, have a Transcendence. Oh, we don't have a Transcendence? Don't worry. We've still got Defense Matrix. We still have Rocket on Winston. They just seem to always have a tool for what SunSister are using to win. And SunSister as well, they are saving up their ultimates. That's a great thing to see as well, but perhaps even being a little bit too conservative, deciding that each push until they get about 4 ultimates is going to be an economical push where they're just looking to build up their own ultimates.
It was really lucky they actually got that fight frisky started with the old Transcendence there, because I was about to say this is going to be great for SunSister now. They can really work their way into this next fight and rotate through these ultimates, but Fireball not giving them any breathing room there at all. When, you know, their backs were against the wall, didn't have much to work with. They really took that fight out in spectacular fashion, but now XQQ on the Pharah. Odinkun going to be starting the fight very early, taking out Rocket as he dives into this. Kurlos, though, picking up the trade there onto Zetman. Oh, great Rocket there from XQQ to take out Apudo as he tries to contest up in the air. Now the XQQ going to be such a disaster for the side of Fireball, as they won't have anything really to deal with him.
And the trades were only slightly in favor on the ground for Fireball. They were sort of winning that fight, but XQQ and also, you know, his Mercy as well, Night Owl, was very much uncontested up in the top. So from that, once things got even just a little bit outside of their favor, he was able to actually win because no one could touch him. So now, Fireball, the way their dive comp has to beat this pharmacy combo is just smash the guys on the ground before the Pharah can actually start hitting those direct rocket hits. If XQQ gets a few in, suddenly the numbers swing in their favor, and then no one can actually touch him up in the sky.
So yeah, SunSister now, they picked the first cap up on the first stage of Lijiang, so they've done it again here. They really have to hold on to this point. Do have a couple of ultimates in the bank to work with as well off the back of this. Fireball still nothing just yet, so if they can find themselves a pick before this fight starts, but look at Apudo getting sneaky round the back here. Nice. If he can find this kill onto Night Owl, that's going to be huge, and indeed, Night Owl gets taken out of the fight here, but what can XQQ do? He uses the barrage, doesn't find anything. Apudo now with the Dragon Blade, NZNR as well, right by his side. Will he even need to use the Pulse Bomb in this engagement? It looks like no way at all, and Fireball should easily be able to cap off the back of this. SunSister only getting themselves 42%.
And Apudo finding the very best answer to a Mercy Res, kill her before she can actually use it. Now Fireball is sitting nice in control, only committing Dragon Blade to that as well. They've got so much to go with, and just remember, there's not even a tactical visor this time to worry about. So really, NZNR once more has to find value on the Pulse Bomb, but it gets eaten!
And there we go, the sound barrier coming out as well. But that's going to be good stuff here now. It's just Fireball should be able to still push their way through this fight here. Can they find that kill onto Odin Kun's mech? Yes, indeed they can. But look at this, Zetman hitting that Primal Rage. XQQ as well, picking up NZNR, so 1 DPS down for the side of Fireball here. Now XQQ, again, looking to just do so much work into the side of Fireball. Without Apudo being able to have much support as well, he's going to have to fall back here. And surely SunSister will be able to get themselves a cap off the back of this. They're going to actually commit the sound barrier into this as well. Rocket being left by himself on the point. Zalfix trying to fly in there and help him out just a touch. But still, these Fireball players are completely split up and disjointed from the fight. But there is going to be a Primal Rage to buy themselves some time. Fireball should be able to get themselves back on the point. Great self-destruct from Ninth as well. Going to be picking up Odin Kun. Pulse Bomb coming through, does a decent amount of damage, but doesn't pick up a kill off the back of this. But Fireball are back in action. The Resurrection, though, coming through from SunSister now, looking to keep themselves on the point and keep this fight going. But this entire time, Fireball is still getting all of this percentage.
They were committing quite a lot of odds, but you're right, they're getting a lot of percentage, and now here comes the Dragon Blade as well from Apudo. Is it enough to actually take the point back?
Well, he finds Elu with it. He needs to get himself a second there, as Odinkun's going to be picking up Kurlos off the back of that as well. And he's going to just be getting forced off the point now, Apudo, but the Fireball players are still falling back and forth, and they're still getting all of this percentage on the point, 84%. And SunSister really need to get them out of their house right now. They need to say, no way, this is ours, get off the point. But Fireball, yet again, not giving them anything. Really looking to set a statement here on Lijiang Tower, 95%. And all of these Fireball players now pouring back onto the ball. What a great dash there as well from Apudo, just cleaning house right now. XQQ doesn't even know what hit him. And indeed, Fireball should easily be able to hold onto this point here. Overtime ticking down. Any run from SunSister to keep this alive. It's going to be Mollis, but still, where are the rest of these SunSister players? Nowhere to be seen, and that's going to be that. Fireball pick up Lijiang, 3-0.
Wowee, that was a lot more one-sided than I was initially predicting going in. It just shows that, yeah, Fireball, I'd say, have been practicing Lijiang Tower as well, and also reading what SunSister's compositions are usually going to be. Even ready for the surprise picks like a Mei coming out of nowhere as well, but honestly, I think Fireball just read SunSister like a book throughout that entire series.
I mean, also, they didn't really have an answer, in my opinion, for Apudo. There was, I guess, XQQ hitting that early rocket on the third stage there, which really sort of, set the tone. But you see what happens for the side of Fireball, off the back of that as well. When Apudo falls, what happens to the rest of the team? They're gone. They don't even exist.
I don't know if anyone called the cheeky Apudo dab just right at the end there.
Oh,
that's how you mark the sign of a map win. 3-0 means 3-0 equals dab. Anyway, it is the way I kind of describe Fireball is they're like a one-trick team. They have this one composition they're extremely good at, but that's kind of the point of their team as well. They play this one composition so often, they know exactly how to play. They know exactly where the strengths, weaknesses, and the limits are. Yeah, they just play the one thing, but they played it extremely well here. Now, look, SunSister have very little options to sort of get past. You guys have said it yourself. The Pharah coming out from XQQ was the first time really it looked like they were really shutting down Apudo specifically on Gardens, but eventually that wasn't even enough anymore. But XQQ's not even safe in the sky from Apudo, and even when we look at Control Center as well, look, XQQ started strong, but as soon as the Mei came in, it really started to go downhill after that.
That's what I was sort of talking about from the side of SunSister. Is the communication really there? Is the team play there? You got this lone wolf XQQ. I feel like the rest of the team aren't going, hey, mate, you should really switch to Mei right now. I think he's going, I'm going to switch to Mei. And the rest of the team are going, why? Why?
Or at the very best, it's like, okay, how do we work around this? But when he did swap to Mei, it was halfway through Control Center, and there just isn't enough time to swap your entire team composition. You lose way too much ultimate charge, and even XQQ, yeah, he swapped straight after an ultimate, so he didn't technically lose anything, but we saw his Blizzard later on gained like nothing anyway, so I don't think his team had enough time to swap their composition to work around the Mei. It can work. You throw in a bit more of a brawl composition where you can get a Reinhardt, you can ball someone off, charge them into that wall. That's where the Mei can work on Control Center, but throwing it into a dive composition, it's a little bit iffy to me.
It doesn't really work out, and they actually had some pretty good fights when XQQ was still into Genji. Now, you saw right at the start there, it looked like Fireball had the early beginnings. They killed Zipman pretty early. Rocket went in for the deep dive, heavily punished by SunSister. Then they started to turn things around. That's when a guy like XQQ on the Genji starts to really shine. He's getting those resets and he's getting those damage, getting the damage output in a really significant way that he can't do on Mei. It almost doesn't matter how good he is on Mei. Now, one of the things he has done in the past is, look, he's a bit of a sniper on the Mei. He kills NZNR with the right-click icicle just unbelievably consistently.
He killed him so much last time that...
Except not now.
Swapped.
This time, that didn't happen. If you're relying on that twice in a row, I don't think you can bet on that at all. And so for XQQ, kind of misplayed there. Staying on the Genji would have absolutely been the better idea, and we saw that from the results as well.
I mean, and speaking of resets as well, it really did feel like this was the Apudo show, going on to Lijiang there. He was by far, that standout player there. I feel if, SunSister want to be able to sort of take the fight to Fireball, they really need to, I guess, put a lot of pressure onto whatever Apudo is playing. So if he's playing Genji, you know what I mean, dive straight onto the Genji. And I know that there is obviously situations that Fireball can play around that, but they seem to be, it seems to be quite hard for them to play off the back when Apudo is being pressured, when he doesn't have all of this room to sort of, pick his own targets and play off the back of that. If they put that pressure onto Apudo when he plays on the Genji, I think that's where they have a good chance at taking the fight.
And this is kind of the weakness of running the Pharmacy combo as well, because when you are running the Mercy and not the Zenyatta, not the Ana, suddenly you lose the Biotic Grenade defense against the Genji, and something that's really offensively useful as well. You lose the Discord Orb, which is extremely important to really, A, pressure out Apudo on the Genji, but secondly, to add that extra damage in as well. So, losing both those supports and trading it out for a Mercy who is 90% of the time stuck onto XQQ, you just have the Lucio on the ground. It's a little bit too much for Elu to be able to handle. With one guy alone like that, he's not going to be able to make Apudo back off. And unfortunately, when XQQ can't be the guy that shoots Apudo out of the air, Apudo reigns free.
And so I think, just really quickly here, is that when XQQ played as Genji, they picked that first early fight up, and then he made that change, into Mei once Apudo came out on top with his Dragon Blade. And his Dragon Blade obviously found nothing and he got shut down. He went to Soldier on stage number 2 there. Didn't really find too much with that. And then obviously the Pharah, I feel he's not the most consistent Pharah in the world. You can't rely on him to, sort of direct hit Apudo, especially if Apudo is playing Genji over and over and over again. So I feel that if they want to take the series, he has to match up with Apudo's Genji.
I've got to say, yeah. I mean, like we saw on Control Center, right? His failed fight with his Dragon Blade was into a sound barrier. That happens sometimes. You don't have to react by swapping onto a Mei, right? Sometimes.
Oh no, Apudo's so good, I'm going to change.
I mean, even from some of the top Genjis, right, we just see some Dragon Blades fall flat. So something like that, a fight failing, especially when something like a sound barrier gets in your way, it can't affect your decision making. You just say, okay, look, that one didn't work. We can move and build on to the next one instead of swapping onto Mei, where you're not getting any benefits out of that.
It's not even about XQQ versus Apudo either. These players, if they're both on Genji, they don't have to look at each other for the most part. They don't even necessarily have to aim each other. You're just aiming the opposite team. Apudo's going to be going for the rest of your team. You're going for the rest of Apudo's team. You're pretty much just sort of waving hi at each other and then just going past and going for the other members. And so realistically, all it is for XQQ and SunSister to have the opportunity and the possibility to get that damage output available. So just have it be something they can tap into. So when they find the opportunity, when they find the pickouts like they did onto Rocket, then start snowballing that onto further picks. That's when something like Genji really helps SunSister out, but not if he's on Mei.
And I think the other thing there as well is I think we've seen Zetman, he sort of, charges like into the front lines more often than not, really looks to get things started. Obviously, that's what happens from your Winston player, but this is what I was saying, is if they sort of change their game plan a little bit and really prioritize, once Apudo gets into their backline, having Zetman, if he is playing on Winston, come back and obviously, put that pressure onto Apudo, that's where they really have that chance to sort of, I guess, take him out, not give him all that free room, because once he builds that momentum, he's such a sort of confidence-based player, if you really get into his head and really shut him down, I feel that that's where he's, he's in a bit of a struggle there. He finds it hard to sort of come back once he's sort of, on the floor, if that makes sense.
I actually find that SunSister, their dive and their sort of cohesion as a team really starts to falter when they play the pharmacy combo, because Zetman is still playing Winston as if he has an additional healing. He doesn't. He doesn't even have the healing from Ilu on Lucio at that point. He's completely alone. Night Owl's not going to come down and heal him as Mercy, or at least maybe Night Owl should, but that's not happening currently because XQQ plays quite high in the air, so he keeps Night Owl with him quite high up in the air. So Zetman is playing into a scenario where he has close to 0 healing, and he needs to be able to pull himself back and say, look, I need to be safer as a player as well, and we cannot be playing like we are if we had an Ana, if we had a Zenyatta, because that additional healing just does not even come in.
So a lot of this is probably going to come to play because we're going into Numbani, and some teams on defense do like to run Fire and Mercy, especially on that first point, right? Blank is one of the big teams that does run that as well. Whether SunSister do run it is going to be another question. I'd still like to see them just stick to that standard dive, keep XQQ on that Genji, no funny things, nothing weird like an Orisa, nothing weird like a Hanzo. Just stick to that Genji, he does a fine job. Even Soldier as well is fantastic on that first point on the defense. The only other option really is running something like an anti-dive, throwing a Roadhog and a McCree in there, but at the moment, I don't think SunSister are capable of running a composition like that.
We've seen Elu, sort of bust the Torbjorn out as well at times, and I hope they don't do that in this matchup as well. I just feel that, Fireball, we've seen the Torbjorn being used, to, I guess, some strength on certain maps, Hanamura being one of them, but I feel when it comes to Numbani, Torbjorn, not that great. I think AHQ have done a good job on Numbani on point number 1 with it, but I mean, Fireball, not Fireball, SunSister are not AHQ.
Yeah, I mean, Torbjorn has a space on Numbani for sure, but also SunSister, I'm not sure if they're a team that will be looking to run it. But that said, it's going to be about who's going to be on attack first as well. So once we catch that, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the matchup as well. But also, yeah, it's the defensive composition. You can see the Torbinator.
They did it.
Well, someone did it.
They did it.
Don't know if it's SunSister just
I'm
yet.
gonna put a bet on that SunSister on defense.
I don't think Fireball run Torbjorn on defense, but yeah, no, it's SunSister. Yep, cool. I owe you $5. There you go.
Well, but hey, mate, look at that. The counter dive there. Molo's going to be playing the Roadhog, so
I do like this.
Technically, we should just hug.
Okay, we'll do that eventually. So look, SunSister, they're running XQQ on Soldier. I definitely like this. The Roadhog actually did come in. Mollis does actually play it as something that I forgot to mention as well in that. So they can shut down a lot of dive. Apudo is going to have to be dangerously careful, not only because of the hook, not only because of XQQ, but that auto-locking turret that Elu has. So before the turret is shut down, Apudo has a lot less room to work with.
Well, speaking of dangerous, the turret going to work right there, taking Apudo out early and not giving him any charge, because that's one of those big strengths that Apudo has as such a good Genji player, as he somehow manages to find all of this charge out of nowhere. Nice shot there from Elu as well, just to finish up that kill there onto Zelfix. So SunSister playing a really nice tight defense there up on the high levels, and really sort of dealing with Fireball as they try to push around and sandwich them in there, walking right into a turret and obviously losing the big man himself, the dangerous Apudo. Very tough for them.
Right at the start of the fight as well. Now see how they're tucking in there. They've got almost what we like to call a budget Lucio as well. You drop down the biotic field for Soldier, you throw a biotic grenade onto it, and then you just get quite a lot of healing over a fair amount of time, usually just the duration of the fight. And Fireball, they just weren't able to dive into it, especially with Apudo dead at the start of that. Imagine a Swift Strike on the entire team tucked into that corner as well.
So XQQ as well playing a lot of, playing very elusively around this pillar here, but Fireball do have control of the high ground across the road from the turret. They do manage to find the kill onto it, so this is now when they need to push in. NZNR needs to get a lot done up on this position, hitting the tactical visor. Fireball coming up with the kills that they were so desperately looking for there. Elu taken out of this one as well as XQQ. It's going to be Zetman to fall as well, and NZNR being untouched. I don't know if they're about hitting the boost up on the high ground there. That's really a little bit of overkill coming out from Fireball, but they should indeed get the cap off the back of this second engagement.
Yeah, a little bit unnecessary, but we'll see if SunSister can actually punish them for it, because SunSister, they had to swap a few things up. Of course, Elu swapping off that Torbjorn, and Fireball will be pushing forward as well. It's going to be really hard for SunSister to find a defensive position here as the payload just slowly travels along with one person on it.
Well, XQQ manages to get himself out of that fight. They're almost getting taken out very early by NZNR, and this is sort of the issue with SunSister. They have the tools to work with to really take the fight to Fireball. They find that kill onto Apudo as he's getting just a little bit too aggressive there. but XQQ with the tactical visor as well. Let's see if he's going to choose to use it in this engagement here. The mech down there from Odinkun, but Zipman actually going to be taking out NZNR as well, so surely this is where SunSister can push themselves into the fight and really get themselves a few extra kills here. Indeed, XQQ finds Kurlos as well.
That's huge. SunSister just won a fight without using any ultimates at all, and in fact, Fireball used the Primal Rage as well for Rockets, so that's a great position that they're in, that they can now get up onto the high ground, get everyone into good defensive positions. All of their positioning wasn't denied by Fireball. Now the thing that they have to watch out for is Apudo's Dragon Blade, and they don't have a sound barrier for that because remember, Elo had to swap onto that
But
Lucio.
they have oh, look at this, the Nano Visor combo as well, and
has it
XQQ
ready.
in such a great position as well, just hiding around here on the flank. Going to be dropping it now. This is going to have to come up big. They do it straight into the sound barrier though, and that's going to be a great counterplay now coming up from the side of Fireball. XQQ, no fearing this one though, hits the biotic field, goes straight to town onto Zalfix, takes him out there. Self-destruct, not finding anything, but that should be enough now for SunSister to really open this fight up. But look at that, a pressure now right onto XQQ. Apudo all over this one, and now the player advantage.
Oh, boy.
Not
saves
at
them.
all. That self-destruct coming in huge right now, keeping SunSister in this fight when it looked like their backs were up against the wall there as Fireball answered back. That self-destruct is going to keep them.
Oh. SunSister, wow, they were actually poised to lose that fight as well because look at what their tactical visor got. It realistically only got the Lucio, who's just going to be able to speed boost back to the point anyway because he got Ninth's mech, but Ninth immediately used self-destruct to get back in. But when SunSister Odenkin got those 2 kills, that brought them back into the fight, but they've lost positioning. Look at the payload, it's moving anyway.
Yeah, and SunSister not really being able to find themselves a stable bit of defense here. Going to be Odinkun flying right up into the high ground. Doesn't manage to catch much of that sound barrier, so his mech's taken out of this fight very early on. And the SunSister players taking a fair amount of damage in this engagement. NZNR very uncontested now up on the high ground, just getting a lot of damage done. And indeed, finding all of these kills onto SunSister, and Fireball firing up indeed, getting themselves the second cap here. And look at the aggression now, just pushing all the way forward as expected.
And NZNR as well doing the majority of that damage, brings his tactical visor up back and ready, and and a bit of a cheeky mirrored play here. Going to be hiding away. No, never mind. He's jumping down. But this is the tool to watch out for. Rocket's actually thrown out the Primal Rage. They're going in for a fight.
Yeah, indeed, and they've got NZNR's tactical visor as well to work on the back of this, and XQQ taken out again early into the fight here. Still looking like SunSister cannot find themselves a stable piece to defend with Mollis on this Zarya here as well, getting a decent amount of charge for himself, but is it enough for him to even push into this fight? Apudo going to be camping as well with the Dragon Blade. They do have a nano boost to work with as well. So, I mean, this is looking great for Fireball. Great momentum coming off cap number 2 here. And SunSister, they're not even letting them out of the spawn here. It's going to be the Nano Blade combo coming right on top of this Reinhardt. Zetman taken out instantly. XQQ answering back, finding the kill onto Kurlos, but that's going to be that. And Fireball kept themselves all the way to checkpoint number 3. 2 minutes 42 left in the bank as well.
All right, so basically one successful fight by SunSister, and that was on the initial push onto point A. Even that double kill with a self-destruct, where it looked like SunSister might have been able to crawl back during that fight, they backed off, they lost positioning. You could see as well, Fireball took the high ground, they were moving the payload at the same time. This is a fight that could have gone SunSister's way if they were just a little bit more aggressive, but we've also got to remember, they lost the DPS players during that too.
Yeah, how do you feel about
Fireball had really good patience during that. There was that one critical fight where SunSister Odinkun pulled out a miraculous double kill on the D.Va self-destruct against both the DPSs on the Fireball side. Now that was important because Dragon Blade and Tac Visor were both used. Fireball, that was a really big commit. They wanted to win that off 2 DPS ults. Unfortunately, huge self-destruct cleaned that up entirely, turned it around. Now for Fireball, they actually had a better push without the ultimates than when they had the ultimates. So when they then pushed again, NZNR taking up the high ground. You saw that uncontested, killing XQQ almost consistently throughout different fights as well. At the start of fights, I mean, NZNR always was able to snipe out XQQ with the Helix rockets. That really changed up the pacing of the fights as well. So for Fireball, one of the big questions is, what else can this team do? And I think this kind of answers it because NZNR now onto that soldier opens up a lot of options for Fireball.
I definitely like it. It's going to be something to talk about in the future matches as well. Just like you said, Avril, the fact that we can see him on the soldier as well is pretty big. Now, what can SunSister change? We saw them bring out a fair amount of anti-dive, and it worked on the first push. But you don't have to worry too much about anti-dive when you're on the attack, unless, of course, the defending team is running a fair amount as well. But, oh, SunSister, are you really going to do it? No, okay, good, he changed. Okay, that was almost going to be a May. But XQQ back on the soldier as well. But it's actually going to be faced up against Apudo's soldier as well.
Well, I mean, and that's again what Fireball, showing again a little bit of diversity there. Obviously, being able to switch these two players around. NZN's Tracer, I feel again a lot stronger than what Apudo can bring to the table when he plays his Tracer there. But a lot of it more of a safer sort of defense coming up from the side of Fireball. Look at this, already being able to push back SunSister as they try to get the control of the high ground, and still not much they can really find here. They do need to get that control of that balcony across the road so XQQ can really go to work with the soldier. But look at that, great pressure put straight onto him, forcing him straight back down the stairwell. And now they've got them caught up here, but Zetman going to be finding that kill onto Rocket as he looked to get aggressive. NZNA getting right in the thick of things there, forced the recall back out of this fight, and now SunSister really need to take the fight to Fireball.
SunSister really patient there as well. They waited for Fireball to act first, and then they immediately jumped on there, both with Mollis and Zetman, just jumping immediately onto the player that jumped onto them. And now with a numbers advantage, this should be no question for them.
Indeed, Apudo taking out of this one as well. NZNA still trying to get a lot of decent damage up in this high ground here, but XQQ going to be all over him, and that pressure now coming in from Rocket as well. That's going to be big here for Fireball. They take XQQ as well as the supports now, and the rest of the team just getting blown over here. NZNA just doing absolute great work, not letting SunSister set themselves up on that high ground, consistently chipping away at them, and amazing stuff there from Fireball to hold on to this.
NZNR, yeah, for sure. Just distracting XQQ as well, making sure his attention was drawn away from the rest of his team. Remember, the defenders also have a close respawn here on the first point. So despite that first death, SunSister didn't act soon enough. They didn't dive immediately onto Fireball, and it was back up to a 6v6. XQQ just too distracted, instead dealing with the Tracer. And by the time he turned his attention to the rest of the members, Fireball already back. They'd already killed 3 members and were ready to just defend once more.
And watch NZNR as well, sneaking around that high ground, looking for a little bit of Groundhog Day, looking to make history repeat itself as they try to push up into this high ground. There comes the Pulse Bomb, doesn't find anything though, as XQQ going to be hitting the Tactical Visor, now has the Nano Boost as well. Nicely placed self-destruct there from Ninth to really push them off this high ground. XQQ doesn't want to move though, he says get out of here, this is my high ground. And Fireball though are picking themselves up enough kills, but Mollis with the Dragon Blade needs to find him another. Picking up Zalfix surely won't be enough here, as Apudo going to be having the Tactical Visor of his own to work off the back of this. Indeed, NZNA picked up XQQ up on the high ground. There is a decent amount of cap though coming out from SunSister, but now the Tac Visor with the Nano Boost as well going to be easily able to clean up the rest of these SunSister players as they try to work their way in, and Fireball stabilizing yet again on this defense.
Had to throw in a pretty big combo there, that Nano Visor combo as well, just to desperately defend. Now SunSister do pick up 1/3, but with only just over a minute to go, this is surely looking like their last attack, really. If it's quick enough, if they fail this one quick enough, they might get a second shot, but realistically, this is going to be the last one, and Mollis and XQQ, both their DPS players are miles away from their ultimates. They're going to have to rely on good old frags.
Oh no, and that's just absolute disaster there for SunSister as NZNR throwing that Pulse Swarm out, taking XQQ as well. Going to be all over Elu as well. Surely should be able to pick this kill up. Oh, smart play, actually not overextending. Going to be falling back there as the rest of SunSister were around to have Elu's back. 45 seconds left on the clock. Now this is surely going to be the last push now coming from SunSister. NZNA doing a great job at buying Fireball a lot of time here. Still ultimate advantage in the side of Fireball. XQQ still looking to get control of this high ground. Ninth not letting him up at all here. Now he does get himself a little bit of position up here, but look at the positioning of Fireball. They're just going to play shooting gallery here. Oh, that sleep dart is actually massive now. NZNA taken out, and he's been key in the defense here for the side of Fireball. So surely this is now their moment. But look at Rocket in this enclosed place here, just going to work on the side of SunSister. XQQ killing himself out of this one, and they're going to need to make haste as there's only 5 seconds left now on the clock. Fireball cleaning up the last few of these SunSister players. Can anyone keep this one in overtime? A couple of these tanks for SunSister looking to hold this one down, but the overtime's ticking down, and there's anyone here to keep it alive. Indeed, there's going to be the Diva, but where's the rest of the team? The self-destruct picking himself up. Just a mech for Ninth there. Now XQQ trying to get himself back in the fight. The Nano Boost coming through. Nicely placed barrier going to stop a lot of that damage. And now Apudo answers back with his own Nano Boost here. XQQ taken out of this one as well. Overtime ticking down. And Fireball going to be holding it at point number 1.
Fireball just shutting out the competition there. And if you guys were talking about the XQQ show on Lijiang Tower, this one was surely NZNR's show. It was his turn to shine. Amazing on offense with that soldier. Amazing, even better on defense on that Tracer as well. I've got to commend the guy. Did so much work for Fireball.
It's never been the XQQ show, by the way, unless you're interested in a show where, look, I don't know what the schedule of that show looks like. The next act could really be anything, but who knows. Kurlos actually had a really big play in the middle of that. One of the attacks from SunSister, which I believe really should have gone SunSister's way, was kind of held out by a good biotic grenade directly from Kurlos straight onto XQQ, which kind of took him out of the fight. Didn't kill him, but it forced him into cover, forced him to essentially hide and to try and keep his life. But that gave Fireball enough time to just sort of respawn, get themselves back into the fight. And by the time XQQ was ready to go again, look, Winston was already onto him. Rocket was already raining down upon him, forced XQQ to bad position and then immediately killed him. Now, a different fight as well, right in there. Rocket managed to get in with the Primal Rage, lock out 3 players. XQQ suicided himself onto Rocket as well. So, consistently, this has been a case of XQQ somehow being picked out very early. Even the pulse from NZNR at the start of a different fight, just chucking it down the corridor, immediately nailing it onto XQQ as well. So the guy just could not catch a break. And this is even in a scenario where consistently Apudo had been forced off his own high ground, consistently pushed off by Odinkun, having to fight on the ground as well. So for both soldiers, they had a tough time, but XQQ had a much tougher time.
But I feel that's the other thing as well, is it was quite predictable play. I mean, there's generally a sort of preset, offense that teams like to work with, where they want to, I guess, secure, position for themselves there. But I mean, a lot of the time, it looked like Fireball were really, reading into that sort of, XQQ wants to get that high ground position there. The way they were going about it was a little bit too easy to read, and Fireball really, having a nice bit of spacing there, finding themselves an early pick and then being able to deal with XQQ as he comes up into the high ground. I think SunSister really needed to just, throw a spanner in the mix there, maybe try and take, the back route, just to sort of just mix things up a little bit, maybe take the underground passage, just to keep Fireball guessing as to where that attack was coming from. But you saw Fireball set up the same sort of preset defense every single time because the offense that was being thrown at them was exactly the same.
The thing is, on SunSister's first attack, right, I liked their plan. They were playing patient. They were just waiting for Fireball to react because they saw, okay, look, Fireball, they're running a dive composition on defense. They have to come deal with us eventually, unless we're never touching the point. But they never did really. But Fireball jumped in anyway, and that's what SunSister were waiting for, and they immediately jumped in after. This is when the divers had no cooldowns to get back out, and they immediately took a 1-kill advantage, right? That's a pick at the start of the fight. Wait a few seconds, your cooldowns are back up, and then you can go in once more. But as Avril was explaining before, between the biotic grenade, NZNR distracting, keeping Apudo locked down under cover, that was enough time for the defenders to come back in for a respawn. So Fireball, again, reacting to the situation enough to stay in, alive, keep the point just theirs for that time.
And that's, I guess, the big thing that's really setting these two teams apart. We've talked about it, Fireball, I guess, crutching on a couple of their standout players to really, secure themselves some wins there. But it really looks like, and I mean, it might just be because they're coming up against SunSister, a lot of their players looking like they're being able to step up when it comes to, I guess, individual play. Obviously Kurlos actually, getting himself the play of the game on Ana. It's not, not all the times you get to see the play of the game coming through from that one. But as you mentioned as well, it wasn't just the play of the game, it was actually the play of the game, you know what I mean? He actually kept that fight going for them, a nicely placed biotic grenade, forcing XQQ out of the fight is, no mere sort of nothing to scoff at because, you don't need to kill him if he's not shooting and you're killing the rest of his team, still winning you a fight.
Then there's also, we've got to talk about Fireball's attack as well, and probably more specifically, SunSister's defense. Their very first defense
Shouldn't have done Tourbillon.
Looked great. I mean, the Tourbillon worked on the first push, right? But then straight after that, they just got dived on and pretty much immediately taken out of the fight. The payload section is really what I want to talk about because checkpoint 3, not really a thing. It was just a whitewash for Fireball. But on the streets phase, that sneaky nano visor combo you saw come out from XQQ hiding behind the building. That looks all fun and cool, like it's going to work. But whether you're hiding or not, the enemy team still hears that voice cue. They still hear "I've got you in my sights," and that's when the box is ticked in Ninth's mind. He just hears, okay, cool, I've got to hold up my defense matrix, and he did exactly that. The Winston was still nearby, and like I said, he may have got a surprise kill onto the Lucio, right? Picking him out at the start of the fight, that's great if the rest of your team is also getting value, but he just sped back into the fight because after that, he only killed a mech, and that was a self-destruct mech anyway, and we saw Ninth immediately get back into it anyway, so it really only brought out an ultimate trade, and then a Lucio for about 12 seconds before he just came back into the fight.
The problem with that play specifically is that SunSister are not playing for any sort of setup here. They didn't play around Winston Bubble. They didn't play around Defense Matrix. As soon as he went in there, Bubble came down, Matrix came out, and the majority of that Tac Visor, the Nano Visor, was kind of nullified. So for something SunSister need to be able to do is get the Bubble out of the way first, find a way to play around it, get either the Diva out of the mech, or force D.Va into a position where she's not immediately directly pressuring you as soon as your attack visor comes out. So the surprise was kind of very short-lived, and the reaction from Fireball was very quick.
He was also in a bit of an awkward position, like looking for a surprise. He also just ended up on the low ground right next to Fireball in a very dangerous position. I mean, Nanovisor can protect you, but not for a huge amount of time, right? Especially once it runs out. He died pretty much immediately after he demech'd Ninth. After that, that just ends up being a 1-for-1 trade if you consider that Ninth just got back into his mech.
I mean, speaking of surprises there, I feel the only reason why that Torbjorn, worked out in the first sort of engagement was purely because it was a surprise for the side of Fireball. Once they knew where it was, because you didn't see the turret get replaced, you know what I mean? It stayed in the same position. Fireball read that one like a book and instantly took that one out. But indeed, Fireball going to be leading the series 2-0. Currently over SunSister. We're going to go to a short break, and when we go back, we're going to have map number 3, going to be Fireball's choice. See you when we return. Hello and welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship Week 8, day number 1. I'm Dallas Easy Fight today. Joining me here on the couch, Matt Smite Ross and Kevin Averill Walker. And today is indeed Fireball's home day, their first match. We're currently in on them taking on SunSister. They currently lead 2-0. And last time these two teams met, SunSister had a bit of a showing against Fireball, but Fireball really taking the fight to SunSister in this one, really asserting dominance for their 2 home games back-to-back. They are going to be picking Temple of Anubis, I believe, for map number 3 here, so going to be some interesting stuff on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we talk about the last time SunSister played Fireball, it was actually a reverse sweep. Fireball coming back, taking it all the way to 5 games and actually winning it 3 in a row. I don't think SunSister are going to pull out the same this time, because last time they met, those first 2 matches were actually kind of close, despite going SunSister's way. This time Fireball are just shutting SunSister out. It doesn't seem like there's anything that they can do against them.
What I really like about Fireball today so far is their ability to sort of put themselves into the game despite Apudo's performance. When Apudo is playing well, we saw that in Lijiang Tower, fantastic Fireball performing great. When Apudo is being pressured a lot, he's being put into bad situations, say on Numbani, still Fireball are able to put themselves in a good position, and that is a good amount of flexibility for this team, where I've said so far, look, they rely a lot on Apudo's performance, and I didn't think Apudo's performance was really that hot on Numbani, but the fact that Fireball was still able to pull out a win, I think is really important for them moving forwards.
I'm glad you just brought that up there as well, because before we got into the series and I sort of talked about, off the back of you mentioning how important Apudo is, coming off Lijiang, I said, SunSister really need to pressure Apudo, if they want a chance at taking these fights there. And we saw that on Numbani, how much pressure they really did put onto Apudo. Albeit he wasn't really on the Genji on the defense there, he was on the soldier, so he doesn't have, I guess, that same kind of mobility to get himself around the map. But even then, we saw NZNA, and not only NZNA, but the rest of the team really sort of carry their own weight there. Kurlos obviously having a couple of standout plays at keeping the team alive. Not only that, the 2 tank players, Rocket in 9th, very, very strong at getting themselves into good positioning, really being able to help NZNA when he needs it, and really being able to keep their supports through for Apudo to even get back. And I mean, even though Apudo wasn't coming up with these sort of big highlight reel plays, him just being there is still enough of, I guess, a threat, that SunSister do need to address it.
I think also one of the big things to talk about for Fireball is that recently, like Averill's been saying, they've been relying a little bit on Apudo, but right now as a team, their decision making has been just spot on. Like I can't fault them for a lot of their decisions. Maybe one ult has been used too many in a few of the fights, but apart from that, they're identifying what they need to do to win the next fight, but more importantly, what the enemy team is going to be trying to do to win their next fight, right? Say, they've been tracking ultimates, of course. Like, next up is going to be Dragon Blade or a Tactical Visor. Don't worry, we've got Sound Barrier ready for that. They've got something like that ready to go. Or even just saying, okay, look, 9th, you've got to be in position. You've got to be able to block this Tactical Visor out. Or worst case scenario, throw a Biotic Grenade at him and NZNR dance around him. Like, anything like that. That's just one example of one player and one ult, but every single time it seems like Fireball have been recognizing, okay, look, this is the enemy team's best chance of winning, and they've been nailing it.
And this was something I was sort of talking about there. It's not only just their pure, positioning and being able to sort of read into these fights and, really sort of, I guess, take the fight. Is it because SunSister are playing badly? Or is it because Fireball have made these huge improvements?
I think SunSister have also made improvements, but this has been sort of the story of the tournament where everyone on some level has made improvements. It just so happens right now, everyone is making improvements that are greater than what SunSister have shown. I think SunSister are much better than they were coming from week 1, week 2, earlier on in the first round robin, even second round robin. This has been the best version of SunSister we've ever seen. Unfortunately for them, this is also the best version of Fireball that we've ever seen. So they're still playing catch up.
Yeah, I think SunSister are looking more consistent is another key word as well that we've been looking for, right? We're not seeing as many times these ridiculous XQQ picks as well, which have been quite a lot of the detriment to the team. Now, a map that we do actually see this come out as well on is in fact Anubis. We've seen him bring out Desperation last third of the point Widowmakers for some weird reason. Also, he will, if he gets a chance to, run a Widowmaker. Again, I just want to go back to what I've been saying at the start of the series, is that XQQ, just be 6 standard, sticks onto that Genji. It doesn't have to match up to Apudo's Genji at all. It just has to get his job done, and we know he's capable of that.
Well, I mean, having a look at these selections here, it looks like I feel Fireball are going to be defending first, but I mean, I could be wrong. And again, this is what Avril's sort of spoken about, you know, how they have this composition that they just sort of fall back onto, but it doesn't even matter if SunSister know what they're going to do. They're just so strong at executing it. But I'm actually wrong. It's going to be SunSister on the defense there. And, you know, Fireball playing a little bit of games with us, showing us a little bit of a weird composition out of the gates. But they're going to be going again for their classic sort of dive composition as well.
Can't fault you too much because these team compositions look pretty much identical most of the time. Only big difference being in the healers. For Kurlos, that's going to mean they're going to be able to destroy whoever dives first, whether it's a Winston or a Genji. But SunSister, they've taken the advantage.
Yeah, nice job there from Zetman to take Kurlos out early into this one as Fireball try to get themselves up into the right high room there and get themselves force SunSister into the fight up in these enclosed spaces here. And very good stuff from SunSister to be patient there and take the fight to Fireball a little bit later on here. But these couple of Fireball players are still pushing their way through, getting themselves a couple of extra kills there, and obviously building themselves that advantage, that ultimate. But indeed, they're actually getting themselves some cap time. And so Fireball might be able to make their way back in and keep this fight going. Where are the rest of these players? But if they find this kill onto the Zenyatta, indeed they do. Kurlos taken out of this fight also. But still, look at this. The Fireball players getting themselves cap time. That kill mattered absolutely not, as Fireball all over this point looking to get themselves a very early cap on point number 1 here. Mollis looking to do a lot of work. Rocket falls, but is there anyone else from SunSister that can get in and help him contest?
SunSister are making a gamble here. They're trying to hold the point, but in doing so, if they lose it, Fireball will rack up a huge amount of ultimate advantage, but luckily for SunSister, it might be paying off. But hey, NZNR is still in the fight, still finding kills. It's really going either way right now, but SunSister, I think they may have just been able to do it.
Yeah, huge stuff there from SunSister to get themselves back into that fight. And I mean, Kurlos, was he even there on Temple of Anubis? Got absolutely destroyed in the 3 engagements he tried to get himself back into. So Mollis doing a good job to be instantly all over that. And I think that's really the key to SunSister being able to take these fights out there, really not letting the Discord orb find its way onto any of their members.
That's a big thing, right? When you're diving Kurlos or any Zenyatta, really, his only defense is putting Discord on you and killing you before he can kill you, right? But of course, if SunSister are just diving Kurlos properly, killing him early enough, then they can just get back out, but they're going in with a lot of ultimates.
And indeed, they're going to be breaking it down, dropping the sound barrier as well. So they do have a pulse bomb, they do have the primal rage, and that self-destruct to work with. You're going to be a Pluto hitting the Dragon Blade there, takes Mollis out, and Mollis has been so strong on the defense here for SunSister. And now, definite player advantage for the side of Fireball, and they're looking to make short work of SunSister here on cap number 1. Indeed, it is being contested, but not for long, as Night Owl's taken out of the fight, back to the spawn, and on to point number 2.
Okay, swapping onto Sombra as well, looking to hack up those health packs, but Fireball are pushed so far forward, it's going to be hard to do that. But that pulse bomb might actually save it for SunSister here. Well, Fireball surely will back off. So, bit of a scary moment because Sombra, earliest time is when it's the best time to push against it. No EMP, biggest advantage for Sombra gone.
Well, they are going to be able to stabilize now, so XQQ going to be able to get the hack out on all of these health packs out of here, going for a little bit of a scout now, seeing what he can find. What's in the Barney bag today? Indeed, he catches the direction in which Fireball are heading here. Looking to get right into the back lines, has Mollis to help him out there as well. So SunSister, very early fight there, translocates out of this fight. And SunSister, nice bit of aggression there, buying themselves some more time. 4 minutes 45 left on the clock here, but Fireball, a lot of ultimates to work with.
Yeah, the real time that SunSister are trying to buy is getting towards that EMP. That's what's going to shut down a lot of the ultimates as well. Especially if they can just throw out the EMP before those ults are used as well, because that will just deny it'll buy time. However, they've got to be careful. If they misplay it completely, they don't pick up the kills, the numbers advantage, then Fireball will eventually just save up and have 6 ultimates to come in with them.
Kurlos doesn't even want to be in any of these fights as he's taken out very early. Again, XQQ doing a great job on the Sombra. And Night Owl just going to be picking up a second one there. His Tracer going to town right now. So you see that sort of triple DPS coming out from SunSister. Doing great work, and XQQ just cleaning up those last few members of Fireball there.
SunSister was so far behind in ultimates before, but we're now 3 fights deep where they've just found a kill at the start of each one, and they're now looking to even things up, right? I mean, Fireball, they're still pretty well ahead, but one more fight like that, and they're just going to lose all their advantage, or at the very worst, tie it up.
XQQ doesn't manage to get himself in position for the EMP just yet. Fireball rushing straight around the left side here, trying to get themselves into the point. Transcendence coming out. This fight needs to be taken right now as that self-destruct now coming out. The EMP coming through for the side of SunSister. Raputo with the Dragon Blade slicing at absolute air right now, but Mollis though taken out. That's going to be huge for Fireball, picking themselves up a triple. Odenkun trying to keep this one alive. Night Owl's Pulse Bomb going to be finding Zelfix, but Fireball all over this point. And indeed, there is a Primal Raging Rocket as well, so this is going to be good stuff here to really finish up these last few SunSister members. Trying to get all over Mollis on the Genji. Can they find him though? It seems like negative now, and SunSister should surely be able to get themselves back on this point, but they're so very close to capping right now. A lot of this riding on Mollis here. Can anyone take that kill onto him? Night Owl finally back into the fight, XQQ as well, and Aputo nowhere to be seen here as he tries to go and heal. And surely now SunSister going to be able to hold onto this.
Whoa. Whoa. Bit of a heart-pounding moment there for SunSister, but eventually with the respawner's advantage, they can get in. But a crucial slip-up just let Fireball sprint past them. And before the fight had even begun, Fireball had capped 2/3 of the points. And yeah, EMP came out. Fireball still had most of their ultimates already activated. Aputo was already using Dragon Blade. Rocket had already used Primal Rage. So the EMP didn't affect too much of the fight, and SunSister still didn't pick up a lot of the kills, but this is the one that they want to win.
There we go, the EMP coming through. They're going to be using Mollis' Dragon Blade as well, so a few ultimates committed up into this fight. SunSister coming up with all the kills as well. Self-destruct being thrown out there from Odenkun. Unsure if they really needed to use all 3 of these ultimates into this fight, but hey, a win's a win right there as they hold on to the cap right here. But Fireball, you know, made their way to the second checkpoint, so things are looking dire. Minute 57 left on the clock.
With a minute 57 as well, that's really enough time for 2, at best 3 fights as well. Fireball want to rush in for a fight now because it's close to Aputo's ult. There's not going to be an EMP if they get in quick enough, and that's really enough for them to just pick up 1/3. That's all they need. The respawner's advantage won't even have as much of an effect.
Well, they don't have much to work with. Night Owl needs to come up big with that Pulse Bomb. Enzenado finding that early kill onto Elu. That's going to be great now for Fireball. Aputo with the Dragon Blade looking to find XQQ. He's out of this one. Picks himself up. Night Owl as well. And all of these SunSister players being forced out of the point, taken out as well, and back into the spawn room. And look at that! Fireball don't even need to wait for a lot of ultimates. Just coming off the back of that Dragon Blade. Pick themselves up the cap. And now the ball is going to be in SunSister's court.
Aputo is happy with that time. Double capping on Temple of Anubis. Pretty good feat there as well. Would have been great if they could have got it on that very initial push up against XQQ's Sombra before it was even ready for EMP. But unfortunately, that Pulse Bomb actually saved SunSister, gave them the time to start building towards EMP.
So, I mean, I think as well, Fireball had quite a good read when they saw XQQ going around. Well, they might not have seen him, but they might have heard him going on that left flank and obviously opting, you know, for the far side to get away from him. Because if you know, I don't know if we sort of noticed this here, but XQQ, he was using the translocate, you know, very defensively to get himself out of those positions rather than, you know, committing to get himself, or he didn't have translocate to get into the fight and throw the EMP right on top of everyone. And so I guess there's that little bit of self-doubt, or that doubt in the rest of his team to be there to take that fight when the EMP hits. So I think that's sort of one of the initial things. I mean, they were winning the fights, obviously, but I mean, committing a little bit too much, you know, they can win the whole fight, you know, with only throwing the EMP in.
Well, you saw the second, well, I think it was the second, the one EMP where they used the Dragon Blade as well. They cleaned up that fight pretty well. Sure, okay, maybe they used self-destruct a little bit too much, but when Fireball snuck around and the EMP was just too awkward to work, then that's when SunSister lost the most ground. But I don't think that's going to be a Torbjorn on attack. Don't worry.
No,
Easy.
I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. I've got big plans for you, mate.
Yeah, Junkrat. I'm sure that's what it is. But okay, it's going to be different this time, though. What is XQQ going to be doing on the attack? Is really the big question. Is he going to run the Widowmaker? Is he going to run that? Because we know he can do Genji, he can do it absolutely fine. It came out to a really great effect on the defense as well, winning quite a few fights, even saving the first point, buying a lot of time as well for SunSister. But it's going to be the Widowmaker, I believe, maybe going for a bit of scouting, but if I know XQQ, he's going to be staying on that hero.
I feel like Fireball can really sort of counterplay XQQ. XQQ needs to really come up with some big shots here. I mean, Apudo and NZNA being, so elusive on these flanking type heroes here, they can really sort of get, if they're positioned really well here and no one really gives them a lot of line of sight to work with, it could work out very well for the side of Fireball. But a lot's going to be riding on XQQ to come up with some big shots here to open this first point up.
Well, the key thing for SunSister to do is make space for XQQ to make those shots, but it's hard to make those shots when you've got a Genji and a Winston on top of you. No,
yes.
That's the enemy Winston.
But nice job there from Zetman to get all over Apudo, and that's great actually because you see XQQ is actually just a big old bait now for the side of Fireball. They want to take him out, and indeed the rest of the SunSister players really there to have hit XQQ's back and really find those early kills now. They need to come up with some more before the rest of Fireball get themselves back on the point. Nice shots being landed here from XQQ. And again, look at that pressure that Fireball want to put on the Widow. Oh, huge shot there as well. XQQ definitely been doing some aim practice here, and SunSister finding themselves a lot of kills indeed on this first cap here. Apudo taken out of the fight as well. XQQ, absolutely insane Widowmaker here, working out very well for them with a very fast cap. SunSister going to be moving on to point number 2.
Well, you nailed it in a sentence there as well, right? Playing the bait, because they knew Fireball would jump in, and I really like that play by SunSister. They just run in with a numbers advantage after that. Now, the key thing is here, they're going into second point with not a huge ultimate advantage, because one, they've got Widowmaker, and two, he got a fair amount of the damage done on the point as well. Sure, Infrasight is nice, but it's not a team-winning.
Oh, and it happens again! It's absolutely huge right there! Zetman all over Apudo as he tries to jump up and take XQQ out. XQQ escaping with a mere 18 points of HP there, but that's enough, going to keep him alive there. Ends it now with the pulse bomb being thrown out there onto Zetman, looking to even things up here. But surely SunSister player advantage, Mollis's Dragon Blade being absolutely huge, but they haven't cleaned these players out quick enough just yet. They're not finding themselves up enough cap time. There is going to be Kurlos on that Sombra, throws out that EMP, but now Fireball getting themselves back into the fight, finding themselves those kills, and indeed holding onto their ultimates as well. So a very nice rotation coming through here. Zelfix actually committing the sound barrier to push this fight through, but SunSister needs to retreat now. Huge stabilize off the back of that for Fireball, but SunSister looking very dangerous.
And in typical XQQ fashion as well. Well, still XQQ fashion, swapping onto something in the middle of swapping to something. He's now onto McCree, which is not something I disagree with, right? It does throw a lot of anti-dive in there. He's also incredibly accurate, as you've seen on the Widowmaker, so getting those headshots puts out a large amount of DPS as well, even against tanks too. It's going to shut down Apudo if he comes anywhere near XQQ as well, so this is something different that they're bringing in, also bringing in the Reinhardt and Zarya. It's setting them back in ultimate charge, but remember, they did throw a lot at that last fight.
Yeah, well, they do have 5 minutes to work with, so they just need to get the cap to obviously take this one into time bank here. Unless obviously they get down all the way down to 0, then they're going to have a bit of a problem. But surely they should be able to find something here. Nice little shield composition going to be working for them here. As long as they can keep XQQ alive, I think that's one of their main priorities there, is the flashbang is going to do a lot of work to be able to take out Apudo and NZNA, but the EMP coming through, Fireball not having a bar of it at all as they pick themselves up 4 kills there onto SunSister. Quickly indeed, a couple of trade kills coming in, but that's not going to be enough at all. Odinkun sent back to spawn as well, and I mean, great stuff there from Fireball, really taking the fight to SunSister as they stack up in that side room.
SunSister, though, it's almost what they wanted, right? They're going in for an economical push, trying to get out Fireball's ultimates, and that's what they got. They got the EMP, they got the self-destruct. Unfortunately for them, EMP can be charged reasonably quickly, right? But they now do have a window because they've got Mollis's Dragon Blade. They don't quite have the Graviton Surge yet. They would have loved to have that. Do they wait again, though? Because then they'll be walking straight into another EMP.
Well, let's find out. They're going to be opting for the same route yet again. And now they've seen Rockets actually just use his jump as well. Oh, but the pulse bomb from NZNR. That's going to be the opening there for Fireball. SunSister, what are they going to do in this situation? Are they just going to try to stabilize in this choke point here? Or are they going to retreat?
It's such an awkward position to lose someone in as well, because you have to get out really dangerously as well. They do manage to do it and even get a pick back, but no, there's the trades. Trades back
Fire Strike as well though there. So this is actually good for SunSister now. They're actually coming out with a couple of player advantage. They could look to gain that position back.
It's not enough against the second point on Assault though, they need to have 6 members to reasonably, reliably capture that point. But look at those ultimates. Those ticks are getting checked. They're close to the biggest combos. They don't have that dead eye just yet. But surely XQQ will get it during the fight, and that can be something they save for once they win the fight, and then they need to defend against the respawners because they've got a good Dragon Blade and Graviton combo.
But Fireball looking to start this party very quickly, not letting SunSister get in position to take the fight, and it's over before I can even finish my sentence there. Fireball, huge EMP, huge Dragon Blade, and I mean, this is actually great because they still hold themselves onto a sound barrier and a Primal Rage as well. I had to stop mid-sentence here. I was thinking, we all saw it. We all saw it. We saw Knight just switch up to the Orisa there, seeing if he's going to bust it out.
But 6 ultimates, and this is the window, I've said it so many times, running up against the Sombra before she has that EMP, you don't have a very long time, you need to go in. The most important thing right now for Fireball is going to be Knight, Defense Matrix, and that Graviton Surge that's coming out from SunSister. If they can eat that, that's huge.
There's a Dragon Blade from Mollis now, the sound barrier as well. We're going to get it in there for SunSister. Straight into this, picking themselves up. 4-5, look at this, it's going good here. No mech for Ninth as well. The Deadeye actually coming out early there. Rocket's taken out of this. They still have themselves the Graviton Surge. Oh, huge flashbang there onto NZ. The cap is going extremely quickly, but they don't even need the Graviton. They throw it out right at the end there though, just to keep them off the point. And SunSister picking themselves up the double cap there as well. So things are extremely tight here on Anubis.
2 minutes to go into Time Bank as well. That's more than what Fireball had. That was a great push coming out from SunSister, and also I like how they read what Fireball were trying to do on defense. It was pretty standard. Use that EMP, try and win out through just shutting down ultimates. But you could also notice every time Fireball threw out an EMP, there was also another ult with it. So every single time Fireball were rotating, they were going an ultimate down. And eventually SunSister, once you lose so many fights, you're eventually going to come back in with 6 ultimates.
I mean, how do you feel about that pickup of the Sombra on the defense?
It's pretty standard now for both teams these days, but where I think SunSister really fell apart was they tried to make that wraparound play, specifically with XQQ on his Sombra. He wanted to get the EMP from behind, right on the flank inside that close room, but look, they gave away the 2 caps. They gave away the 2 ticks, the 2/3 on Fireball's push. Now, had they not given that away, it would have been a much better defense from SunSister, and this could be a very different game.
Yeah, I mean, going into Time Bank as well, not a huge amount of time, and also remember how long it took Fireball to capture that first point. A lot of persistence in SunSister trying to defend that first point as well was a big part of that, but at the same time, I feel like Fireball still have the tools to get in there and capture this straight away. And also, if we're in Time Bank, this is also a scenario where we may realistically go to the percentage system on even the first point, right? Even capping half of it, 2/3, even 95% of it could win you the game still.
Well, let's see if Fireball can make the changes they need, because their first point attack was shut down very well by SunSister, and indeed, they're doing it yet again. Apudo taken out early into this one. They do take the mech out of Odinkun there, but look at all of these kills now coming up for SunSister. Great read there, letting Fireball get themselves in, forcing them up into that sort of choke point up in the high room there, and then easily dealing with the rest of them. So now only 50 seconds left on their attack here. So what can Fireball do?
Every single time as well, Fireball have lost the first fight. Apudo has at least been close to his ultimate. That is not the case this time. He's under 30%, and XQQ is actually the one that's a lot closer. They've also got Zetman with the Primal Rage. They could bring this to overtime at the very worst with that Primal Rage.
Well, NZ forced to use the recall there just to get that HP back. Doesn't really get himself into a decent position, as SunSister actually getting themselves stacked up in this room, but it's not even an issue for them. The Primal Rage coming up from Zetman, picking up that early kill there onto Kurlos. Yet again, Zelfik's taken out of this one as well, and SunSister in the player advantage here, chasing Apudo out. He can't find anything in these engagements at all, and Zetman looking to finish him off. This will be absolutely huge if he can take him out.
5 seconds!
And indeed he can. That stagger is going to be absolutely huge. Rocket's going to be racing to the point, looking to keep this one alive. Oh my goodness, NZ though is there as well. And so now these two hand in hand, picking up Mollis as well. SunSister looking a little bit split up here, getting themselves a decent amount of cap time as well. Will SunSister contest though? This could make or break their Temple of Anubis right here.
Oh, easy. What are we seeing? It just looked like a guaranteed hold for SunSister, but they're going to lose the point. XQQ dead with the Dragon Blade. They're going to cap the first point. They're going to gain a little bit of time. I don't see them capping even a third with the second point, but that is absolutely a point that SunSister should have held.
Yeah, I thought they were, I think they got caught sleeping a little bit there, or they're just getting a little bit too aggressive on Apudo. Should have just let him fall back there and really dealt with NZNR on the point. But NZNR again, just being, that saving grace now for Fireball. They do have these 3 ultimates to work with as well. Almost have that sound barrier. XQQ though with the Dragon Blade coming out early, taking Kurlos out very quickly into this first fight here. But now Apudo's Dragon Blade finding himself that kill onto Zetman. Far more important, I feel, in this engagement here. Now NZNR taking out Night Owl, did throw out the Pulse Bomb, didn't really find anything with that one. They used the sound barrier just to push themselves through this fight for a little bit longer, but surely they can't get themselves to this first checkpoint on the cap. Surely.
Oh, well, they're getting a lot of kills for themselves. SunSister do respawn incredibly close. XQQ will be coming back in, but they're doing it. They're getting at least a third. I think they're going to get 2/3 instead. This could be a full cap.
No way, overtime ticking down. Unbelievable stuff. Fireball out of absolutely nowhere, getting themselves the double cap. Only having, I believe it was 1:22 to work with on their offense there when their backs are up against the wall. 4 seconds left, only having 2 players up. Somehow, some way, bang, bang, cappity. What are you going to do now, SunSister? You're going to be tilted now, surely.
That was the best description I've ever heard. Thanks, Easy. But
I'm in absolute awe right now. That is insane.
You've got to be thinking as well, like if you're SunSister, you're looking over, glaring at the other side of the stage because that was a point you should have held. You should have been sitting there thinking, this is our map win, this is where we bring it back for the reverse sweep, but playing a bit too aggressively, also getting hit by a very, very sneaky pulse bomb as well. Losing the point. There was 0 progress on the first point when we were going into overtime, but they managed to get there. I was questioning whether they could even get there. They still managed to do it. I mean, SunSister, what they've got to do going into this next round, they've still got 2 minutes. They can do what Fireball just did, but it's a huge ask of them.
I feel the confidence there now for Fireball off the back of that. They're going to be really happy with themselves. They're going to be so chuffed sitting there. There should be smiles all around the team here. They're going to be feeling, I believe, very confident. But, SunSister on the first offense looked a little bit cleaner. So, I mean, coming into this is where, SunSister now, if they have that, mental strength, they can just come into this and be like, hey, it doesn't matter that we lost it. We can just do the exact same thing as you just mentioned, Smite there. Push our way through. XQQ's Widowmaker was absolutely huge.
But remember why as well. They were using him as bait, drawing in the enemies, and it worked twice in a row. If it works 3 times in a row, then Fireball are really the ones making the mistake there. They've got to recognize that we've got to put some attention onto XQQ, but enough that we don't just get killed straight away.
Look at that change from him. Great positioning, and that's absolutely a massive pick there. Look at that, Apudo just showcasing his raw skill here on Genji. Great. I just can't even believe that. That was absolutely huge there, Apudo.
I mean, that's fantastic as well. Yeah, it shuts them down, buys them a whole lot more time, but remember, that's all they've been buying, right? It's also buying Apudo a little bit of ultimate charge, but that's 1 kill.
Look at this
that
patience.
Doesn't swing the ultimate advantage very far in your favor. If Apudo can get Dragon Blade during this defense, that's fantastic, but again, XQQ, is he going to be shut down? He's not going up into the same position, that's the biggest thing. And Apudo, he's perhaps just a little bit far away from the fight now.
Well, being like the true ninja that he is, just playing the waiting game here, just looking to get themselves up into the back lines. He's not worried though, they're still buying themselves a lot of time here. 50 seconds now left on the clock, and SunSister haven't really done too much. They've got that ultimate up on the Widowmaker, but that's not enough to win in this fight. But getting that kill onto Rocket surely is a good start though. And now Mollis looking to get his Dragon Blade up early. XQQ finds a pick. Oh, that's a huge pulse bomb there coming in from NZNR. Unbelievable stuff, taking out Mollis and Elu with that one. And now NZNR right up into the thick of things here, looking to force the rest of the SunSister back out into the spawn. Can they take this mech out as well? This is going to be absolutely huge. Oh, and indeed, that's taken out of this, and NZNR will go back home happy, and he will have dinner for the rest of the Fireball squad here.
He doesn't have enough time to get back into the mech. He has to run back to the spawn, change, or just run in as the baby diva. It looks like that's the choice that he's going for. That's going to be really risky. It's just way too easy to kill a diva, 150 health, but it's going to be all on Mollis with that Dragon Blade, has to get so much value.
Yeah, but that sound barrier now coming through. XQQ finding the pick onto NZNR. It's going to be that kill onto Kurlos, but Mollis taken out, only finding one with the Dragon Blade. Surely not enough, and Apudo with the Dragon Blade of his own should indeed seal the deal for Fireball, and indeed it does, and Fireball going to be picking up Temple of Anubis, picking up the series 3-0. What a dominating performance there out of nowhere when their backs were against the wall. Turn that one around. Take out Anubis as well.
Anubis looked like it could have been SunSister's moment. It could have been their time to come back swinging. Dropping the ball, even for a second, even during overtime, can make or break the game. But even just seeing as well, on their time bank attack, they would have gone to a draw at best anyway.
Well, I mean, I want to say, this was, it's flashy, but NZNR just being the absolute glue there on that sort of final bit of their defense there, just absolutely blowing SunSister away with that pulse bomb, definitely sealed the deal there.
It was really on to Illu as well to kind of not kill Mollis.
That's a big part of it.
You look at Mollis, he's trying to get away. He's like, no, please just get away from me. And they just sort of walk back to spawn hand in hand, which is really unfortunate for the SunSister team. But you've really got to be able to congratulate SunSister a little bit. They had some good set plays there. Specifically, you've already mentioned this a few times, but playing XQQ on the Widow, I mean, the bait gets set out there, and Apuro cannot resist. And multiple times, he jumps in there, and Zepman punishes him so heavily. And SunSister are able to capitalize off that. They're able to get into a push, use that one-player advantage, specifically onto a player that has been giving them so much trouble. Apuro, like we've said before, Apuro is a big deal when it comes to Fireball. He's a big part of that team. Shutting down what is one of the key players in Fireball is a really good way to get an entry into onto the point, onto the objective, whatever it is you're trying to do, to really open up Fireball. And the final push was a really good one out from SunSister. Really good defense from Fireball, but a well-calculated offense from SunSister to sort of close it out. And just the final moments when we saw XQQ as well. The Deadeye kill onto Rocket, and then the flashbang into headshot kill into NZNR as well. So well executed, saving the Graviton Surge. We said, look, this could get eaten up. That would have really put the brakes onto SunSister's push, but even using the Graviton right at the end to sort of secure and make sure no one can contest was well executed and well planned by SunSister. So all in all, I think they had a pretty good performance despite the result.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. And just to sort of talk about Fireball, that right at the end there, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me sort of thing there. Apuro not taking the bait too eagerly, early into that sort of defense they had there, being a little bit more calculated. But the entire Fireball squad, indeed, not jumping right onto SunSister. They sort of let them through the choke point there, let them take the fight to, obviously, to Fireball, because they know that SunSister need to push their way in there. It's one thing I sort of noticed about Fireball in the series. They're a very aggressive team, and SunSister, if they have a strategy to sort of work, sort of make them pay for their over-aggressiveness, it really works out well. But when Fireball are able to sort of, stabilize and be a little bit more methodical and think through some of their fights, they look like such a strong team.
I think when you see the same thing happen immediately again, Apuro was able to just jump on that as well. And I think XQQ on that time bank round, he had to be prepared for that, right? You have to realize, like, look, I've done this twice in a row to this guy. He's going to have a plan. And even though it looked quite similar, like, oh, it's just Apuro jumping on a Widowmaker, he was waiting. He was waiting patiently, looked through the positioning of the enemy teams. And you've also got to put it on XQQ as well, right? A little bit of tunnel vision. I mean, he was literally sitting just to the left of Apuro, where Apuro was just waiting for him. And XQQ was just in a scope, not looking at his surroundings, and said, looking for a kill. It takes a few seconds to just look around and then go back to your scoping. If he'd done that, he would have seen Apuro, called to his team, and then immediately they could have taken him out and got the same result on that first round.
I mean, I personally think that XQQ, on that sort of time bank offense, shouldn't have played the Widowmaker again. I think they were putting a little bit, too. Or I guess
it's too slow,
yeah,
right?
It's just not really.
It feels like you don't have much time to work with, and when you're waiting, you're playing a composition where, I feel like it takes a little bit more time to get set up. And you see the way SunSister played with that composition anyway the first time that I brought it out. They played it quite patiently, which is kind of good. That is how you want to play it. You do want to be the flush members out, but you are also waiting for the picks to come out of XQQ, because it's one thing to get the dive in and to force Fireball in a position where they're out in the open. It's another thing for then XQQ to clean up the kills, which didn't really happen in the time bank period.
And the other thing, just the final sort of point to note there was, if Fireball didn't get double cap again, sure, maybe, you can work with that. But the thing is you still need to double cap. And how often do we see the Widowmaker be that, that key to getting you the second point? Literally never. So the thing is even if they did manage to get themselves point number 1, they still have to get cap number 2.
Not enough momentum.
And there's no way that you're obviously going to do that with the Widowmaker. But I mean, let's just see how things now, how the leaderboards are shaping up after that one there. Now Fireball picking up their 6th win, looking hot on the trail of Hong Kong Attitude. So they will have their next matchup as well, coming up against Detonator Gold. So looking to get themselves the 7th there. It looks like NZNA was actually the player of the game as well. So
I think I definitely agree.
I would have to agree with that as well.
I think specifically
Especially
on,
Numbani. Oh,
yeah,
real quick,
Numbani.
mine had to be Numbani and Anubis there.
Yeah.
I think on both of those maps. Apuda was definitely, he's amazing when it comes to control. He's like by far one of the most standout players, I think, when it comes to just raw fragging ability. But when it comes to those clutch, those moments, it's all NZNA.
NZNR was just consistent across mostly Numbani as well. I think was the big part of that. On defense, on attack, whether he's playing Soldier, whether he's playing Tracer, just got so much out of it. You have an MVP?
If I was going to throw a bone, I would really want to be able to say that for me, Mollis on SunSister's side was pretty impressive today because at first he's the support player. You look at him, you go, cool. He was someone that played the support heroes. It's something he does. Then he moved on to the Tracer. You're like, oh, cool. So he plays a bit of Tracer. Now he's picked up the Genji as well. And there were a lot of questions as like, how deep is Mollis's hero pool? Because is he a guy that just only plays Tracer now that he's on DPS? Apparently not anymore, because he's actually been performing at least against Fireball decently on the Genji, and it's something that's going to open up SunSister moving forward as well. Even with the little amount of time that we have left for SunSister as a team, this is something they can use moving forward to sort of spread themselves out a bit further and be able to discover more compositions that work in their favor.
Yeah, Fireball picking themselves up their first home game today. Next up, after the break, they're going to be taking on Detonator Gold, seeing if they can come up a little bit better than obviously their sister team from Japan, SunSister, losing that first series 3-0 there. When we come back after the break.